Hello and welcome to another episode of Linux and Code. Today we're going to be working on the rest of the CRUD application that we started last time, working on read, update, and delete. Let's get started. Okay, so we're going to tackle the read on user first. And that should be pretty simple because for a generic user read, we can actually keep this same default route that we made in here, right? We just have to require a user object again. And in here, we're doing the generic get for users. So this should be all of the users on our system. So we're going to say user.find, and we're not actually going to pass any requirements into here. We're going to say .then users, because again, this is returning every user in the system. We're going to return a response.status of 200 because the request was successful, and .json not 200 users, because again, this is a JSON object already coming back from Mongoose, and in this case, it'll be an array. So we save that. Now if we come over and we do that request, this is going to be a GET request on API/user. We send that. We just get Bob because that's all we had, which is perfect. Now let's do the same thing for item. Now I'm going to, once again, I'm going to copy this code just to save some time, and we're going to go over to item where it's a read, clear out this default route, change this to be item, and require it. Now if we do a request on items, we'll actually have quite a few in this from our previous test solving that ID problem. So as you can see, we get an array with all of the items we created, which is perfect. So that's working exactly how we want it to. Now what if we wanted to update one of these? Well, that's going to be a little bit different. So in our update route, we're going to do a put because that's typically how in HTTP you reference a document you're going to update. You use a put method instead of post or get. So how are we going to do this? Well, we know we aren't going to just return a blank JSON result. We're going to need an ID because we want to validate the ID that is in the parameter is an existing document. So we're also going to need our user document, our schema, I should say, from Mongoose, because that's how we know what we're going to update. So we're getting this ID, but how do we reference it? Well, that's actually req for the request, .params, which is what is represented by this :ID just above where I'm typing, and then just .id. So these two map directly. So we want to find this, but then how do we update it? There's a couple of different ways you could do this. You could do a find, like we did in the get method, and get the user, set the updates on the user, and then save it again. There's actually a better way to do this, and it does all of that in one go, and that is find one and update. And this is a feature of later versions of Mongoose. Earlier versions, you may have to find the user or the other object and then update it and then save it again. But in later versions of Mongoose, like what we're using here, you can do it all in one request. So we're going to say user.find one and update. And then we need the condition that we're trying to match on. So _ID in our case should be equal to this req.params.id. And so that's our find condition. Then what are we updating? Well, we're updating the entire document because we're doing a put, which requires you to pass in everything, not just what you're updating. So in our case, that put is going to just be the req.body. And then we get some other options that we can pass in here. And I'm going to say new equal to true, which means this function, this find one and update, will return the newly saved document to us whereas otherwise it would just return what we passed in. And I want the data that is for sure saved in the database. So that's all we need to do. And then we're going to call a .then, and that'll give us back our updated user. We don't need this anymore. And we're going to do res.status. This is okay to do a .200 because you're updating an existing resource. JSON updated user. And we will return this. Again, you want a .catch in here because this won't always work, as we already saw with our ID error. And we're just going to say catch error. And then we're going to return a 500 error with a message failed to update user. So now that we've done that, over here we should be able to do a put request, but how are we going to do that? That's different from anything we've done. Sort of. So we have this, right? And this is going to just be a little bit different. This is going to be a put, and we're doing it on a user, but we need that ID. How do we get that ID? Well, right now we can just call the get on users, and we only have the one user. So we'll just copy this ID that we get back, and we'll add that to our URL. So now we're doing a put request, and now we can just update the properties of this that we want. But remember, it expects the entire document to be present. So we're going to copy this entire thing and now we're actually going to add a preference. Remember, I called it preferences, so it's actually got to be the plural form of that. And this is a mixed type, so this can be whatever we want. So I'm just going to say something simple like lang for language, and we'll just say English. And I want to send this request, and it's going to complain. Now, why is it going to complain? And the reason it's giving us an error is because when I injected this preferences, I didn't add another comma. So that's a quick, easy fix, and we'll send that request again. And now it took. So we can see we put in a put request to this URL with this ID, and we get back our updated document with the language of English saved for our user Bob. If we wanted to, we could actually change this to, say, Tom, and send this request. Now our username is Tom, and we can verify all of this by calling our get request on user. And now the user we get back, you can see this is an array. The user we get back is Tom, and he has the preference of English. Now, that worked exactly how we wanted it to. So let's do the same thing for items. So again, we're going to copy some of this code to make this whole thing a little bit easier. We can actually copy this entire thing because we also have to change the route signature in this update. So again, we still need to import our item. And update our few references here. We want to call an item instead of a user. We're still doing the same ID. We're still posting the whole body. It's not an updated item or updated user we're getting back, though. It's an updated item. And we need to update this error message as well. So now that we've done that, if we come and get our list of items, we get a whole bunch. Let's just take this first one here. And we'll come all the way down. Copy this to save ourselves some time. And now again, we need to change this ID. And then also the object. And we're just going to change, not the creator, that's still the same. We're just going to change the content of the note. Add a little emphasis. And then we can send this request. Comes back with our updated text. And if we do the get on all of our items, we get it back just how we wanted it. So that's looking pretty good, but unfortunately we've run out of time, so we will get to a few more advanced read features and delete in the next episode. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a good day. Take care.